Howdy folks. Today we're going to be taking a look at Node modules or modules in Node. So there are three kinds of modules in Node. There are internal modules, which are first-party modules, and these are modules that are built into the Node system itself. There is code that you've written in your project that you might want to import, which isn't technically a module, but Node kind of loads it the same way. And then there are third-party modules, which is honestly the most complicated bit, and it's what we're going to be focusing on. So, let's get started. The first thing you need to do in order to get your modules is you need to initialize the Node Package Manager. The Node Package Manager, or NPM, let me actually clear this, NPM. You run it, it gives you this whole bit of output. You should have this if you have Node. Node comes with it and installs it automatically, so no matter how you installed Node, you should have NVM. There are a couple of alternatives like PNPM or Yarn, but we're going to focus on NPM for now because it's the one that everyone's likely to have. So the first thing you need to do is run npm init, init. If you run that, it starts asking you a bunch of questions, and it says, hey, tell me about this project that you're doing. You know, what's its name, what's its version, a bunch of things like that. You can answer these if you really want to, or you could just skip them by pressing enter. If you skip and press enter, the value in the parenthesis here is what it will pick. So I'm just going to skip them all. It gets down here, it shows you what it's going to write. Again, you can skip through here. If you want to actually answer those questions, feel free. I'm just not going to do it for this video. That gives you package.json. Has a bunch of interesting fields in it. We're not going to cover those right now. But the important thing is this needs to exist in order for you to be able to install packages. Because if you try to install packages and you don't have this, no, NPM is basically going to try to find one. It's going to go up your directory hierarchy, and if it can't find one, it's probably just going to make one at your root directory, which is not really where you want it to be for a number of reasons. All right, so let's take a look at an example. Let's say we had some code, and we have a string. And maybe we want to check to see if that string is an email. Is it an email? Is it not an email? Well, we could definitely write some code in JavaScript for that. Remember, the whole point of third-party modules is not necessarily to add new functionality. We could already do a lot of this stuff. It's just to add code so that we don't have to write it. Right? If you want a bunch of new stuff or to make the language do new things, you usually look at first-party modules. Though there are some third-party modules that do some of this stuff too. But more often what you're doing is kind of just looking for a shortcut. You know you could write this code, or maybe you can't write this code, which is also totally fine. And you know someone else has done a good version of it. So let's say I wanted to validate emails. Well, I'd probably want the validator module, which I looked up before the video. So in order to install that, you would run npm install, and then the name, validator, that you have the module you want to install. You can do multiple, separate them by a space, but I'm only doing one here. I run that, and you can see it's pretty quick for small packages. For large ones, it's sometimes slower. Added one package, added two packages. That's good. You notice two new things have been created over here. First is package lock. Actually, let's look at package.json first. Package.json has gained a new section, dependencies. And that is the name of the package we installed and its version. This is a version using what we call semver, semantic versioning. There are three parts. The first one is major version, the second one is minor, and the third one I like to call bug fix version. I'm not completely sure if that's the correct term for it though. Any package that upgrades its major version is usually signifying that it made a breaking change. Something about the way it worked changed significantly, so you will not be able to just drop it into your code. You'll have to change your code to use the new version. If you're just starting out in a project and just pulling in the package, that's not a big deal because you haven't written any code yet, but watch out if you have a project already. Minor and bugged version will not have that problem usually. Now, that tilde there, or not tilde, what is that? Hat, caret, that's it. Gets added automatically by Node, or NPM, unless you tell it not to. And what that says is, hey, when you're installing this, 13.9 is a great version, but if 13.10 was out, go ahead and install that instead, because that'll be even better. What it won't do is it won't install version 14. So it will keep the major version, but any minor version or bug fix version, it will upgrade. Some people don't like that. That's where package lock comes in. Package lock specifically locks every version or every package you install to a certain version. It gives you the hash for it, so you know if you're being screwed over by downloading it. And it tells you what it resolved and the exact file it's downloading. This can be useful for a number of reasons, security being one, but also if you don't want that version to change. Now you could go by and delete all these carets, and that'll have the same effect, but NPM adds them by default. And if you're on a big project, well, your other coworkers are probably going to add them too. So having the package lock is just a surefire way of making sure that everyone has the same version of the packages. Why is that important? Because behavior can change between versions, and you want everyone having the same behavior so that they're all on the same page. So the next thing you can see that happened is we got a node modules folder, node underscore modules. Now when node looks for third-party modules, it will look for them here. Then it will look up the directory and up and up and up. It basically goes up the whole directory tree until it finds a node modules folder, and then it's going to look in there. If we take a look at this, we've got another package lock, which is kind of a simpler version of that package. And then we've got validator. This is the actual module. All the code. Library, ES, whatever that is. You don't delve into node modules too much, so don't worry if you don't understand this. It has its own package.json. It has a bunch of fields. You can see it has its own dev dependencies. Difference between dependencies and dev dependencies, you notice none of these got installed. Dev dependencies are only installed when you're developing. They can be useful for testing, like you can see in this point, the person's using ESLint for linting, a couple other things which might be useful. Dev dependencies don't get installed by us who are consuming the package though. So, now that we have no modules, we can import. Imports usually go at the top of the file. It's a good convention to put them there. They don't have to. They can go anywhere really, but you want to put them at the top. So we start off with const, then we usually create a variable with the same name as the package we're importing. This is not required. You can name this whatever you want, but by convention, we like to give it the same name as the package so that when we're using it later on in the code, we know what it is. And we know at a glance, oh, that's the validator. Again, you don't have to do that. It's just a good convention. Require. That's a new function. This is something only in Node. Node gives us this require, and basically what you do in require is you tell it what module you want to import. So I'm going to say, you can see it actually picked these two. VS Code is trying to be helpful. I don't have Express installed. Here, I do have it installed in another package in the further up the directory, so it thinks I have access to it. Validator. If it doesn't show up, that's okay. But now I have access to that entire module. So let's just console log that. You can see a bunch of different functions available in that. So now what I want to check if there's an email. Equals validator.is email string log. All right, and I go ahead and run that. Is email true? Pull that out. Email false. So now I immediately, just with very little difficulty, have a powerful validation system that someone else has written and very generously made available for me to use. So that is how you import and use, or install, import, and use third-party modules. If you want to get rid of them, honestly, the quickest way is delete them from dependencies, but there is also npm remove. So if I run npm remove validator, it removes it from dependencies and also cleans up node modules, which can be kind of helpful. I'm going to put it back just for now. Important thing, you do not want to check in the node modules folder. You might think, oh, I've got all these great things. I'm going to send this to my buddy. They're going to work on it too. You don't need that, and let me show you why. So let's say I download this. Here's the code. I've downloaded this code. I've got package.json package lock index. I can run npm install with no package name after it. Okay, just npm install. And what that's going to do is that's going to go through my dependencies, and that's going to install all the dependencies. Just like that. Which means that anyone I send this code to, as long as I send them the package.json with the dependencies, they don't need to have the dependencies in Git, which is great because oftentimes for most projects, the dependencies are actually much larger than the actual code you've written because you're building on so much code that's been written before. Not a bad thing. But you don't want to actually put that in your repository because you don't want everyone to necessarily have access to it. Because it's just going to clog up Git, it's going to clog up their downloads, etc. So what you want to do, gitignore node modules. When you commit, you're never going to commit the node modules because they shouldn't be there. Once you get to bigger projects where you're installing React, where you're installing Express, you're going to have sometimes 1,000 dependencies that get installed because validator doesn't have any dependencies, but npm will install dependencies of the modules you install, and there could be quite a number of those. Like Webpack has 73, the last I checked. So, went over npm init, creates the package.json. npm install with the name of the module will install it, add it to dependencies, and create the package lock and add it to node modules. To require it, you want to go in here, require, and usually we give a variable the same name as the actual module. Then we can access all of its functions just like it was an object that we created ourselves. Be sure to add node modules to your gitignore just because you don't want to check it in because it's extra data that you don't need. Anyway, I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you all next time.